All right, Big Bang. Today is Tuesday. It's October 19th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Chief, how are you today?
I'm good. Back. Recovered this weekend. Feel good.
Back?
Yourself?
Yeah, back. I feel like
I was dragging last week.
You
a
presented
little bit.
back like you went somewhere.
Mentally
All of
mentally
last week
back.
you were dragging?
A little bit. I think so. Yeah, I think I was.
You're
just
right. Last week was a long-ass week.
Long week. I was a little tired under it. So
A couple White Sox games. Couple
yeah, I was just tired.
Blackhawks opener.
Yep, they fucking stink.
Oh, my God, dude.
We'll see what happens at home tomorrow night, but it's been a rough start.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
You know what, though? You know what could cheer you up?
What's that?
Some nice Gale Street in.
Oh, that is one thing. Like, I was talking to my mom this weekend, and one of her sayings is "Food is love. Food is love." So that is the case. So if you're trying to get through a Blackhawks game, or just get through the week, or you want to do something nice for somebody, just send them over to Gale Street. Give them a gift certificate. Order some food. It is the best.
Yeah, so they're located at 4914 North Milwaukee. There's a Jeff Park Blue Line bus stop, train stop right there. You could go get off right there, and maybe if you're going to O'Hare, go a little early, get some dinner. They're also on the Toast app, I know. Go to galestreet.com. You can put your order in. I'm telling you, people. I know, like, a lot of our fan base, I know, lives east, and they live out here, and they might have their rib places carved in. But, like, honestly, I can't endorse something harder. I really can't.
If they have their own rib place and it's not Gale Street, it's just because they don't know. So, listen, I like other rib places, too. Like, there are other I
good
haven't
rib places.
found one better than Gale Street in Chicago, at
So, listen, go check it out, okay? Go check it out, galestreet.com, 4914 North Milwaukee. It's awesome. You will love the ribs. Ribs travel as well, so don't be afraid to get them delivered over to you in Lakeview or wherever you're at. So, once again, galestreet.com, 4914 North Milwaukee. Go get some ribs.
I might do it for tonight's home opener.
There you go. I like that.
Yep.
I like that. Okay, so what's the topic of the day?
Yeah, this is a topic that has been kind of in the documentary space for several years now, and it's really it's the water war. So you have it's the Western United States and really the Southwestern United States has had this drought going on forever, and for a really long time, and it's getting really, really bad. If you look at some of these, Lake Mead and some of these other lakes and rivers around that part of the country, they call it the Colorado River Basin, and that's what we're going to be talking about the most. It's really drying up quite a bit to the point that the Colorado River starts in the Rocky Mountains, and it used to flow all the way down into Mexico and then out into the ocean. Doesn't do that anymore. Stops dry in Mexico, and it's a big problem because have you heard of the Hoover Dam?
I have.
Okay, so that's the Colorado River. The Colorado River supplies. It's the only water source for the California basin. I'm trying to think of the exact name of that basin or that valley where they just grow a shit ton of food. It's the largest agricultural output center in the country, by a pretty wide margin. Mm-hmm. So they're in charge of our food, electricity, all this. And then, there's all sorts of indigenous communities, the Navajo, that rely on that water supply that they just can't get water now. And it's a growing and growing problem and crisis that there's a lot of factors, and people are really starting to look for solutions. And one family that has put together a solution is the Waltons. Meaning, the Walton family, their father was the founder of Walmart, and their solution to this ongoing water crisis in the southwestern United States is to just privatize it. So they want to own the Colorado River and have all the water rights to it.
So, as we know from talking about water on this show, this seems like a very smart move by the Waltons.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but that
Water Wars episode.
Water Wars, and we did a Water Wars episode?
Yeah, we did.
Huh, I don't remember.
Egypt and
international.
Yeah, internationally, not U.S. based, but we also learned that everything affects everything. So.
Right, it's all kind of interconnected, and they want to buy up the water and treat it basically as a commodity. And we also have talked about on Sirius and this show and other places, Dr. Michael Burry from The Big Short, Well, if you watch the Big Short, like the last ending slide, which is just a black screen with white text, be like, oh, what are these people up to now? And it's like Dr. Michael Burry is invested in one thing, water. And it's like, oh, like fresh water supply. So it's like, this is interesting. You got that guy. You got the richest family in the world. It's kind of weird that the Waltons have insane money. So their family net worth, like the combined, which is mostly divided among 6 people, is $238 billion. It is a fuck ton of money.
It's a lot.
And, it's Alice, Jim, and I want to say he doesn't go by Junior, but it's like Sam Walton Jr. It's like S something Jr. S something Walton Jr. Those are like the big 3, and their shares alone are worth, I think, the lowest share worth of just their equity in Walmart, which Walmart makes something like $100 million a day. Okay, now it's not all profit to them per day, but they're still making crazy money. Like those six richest people at Walmart make more or worth more than like than 43% of the country. And so they're so wealthy, but you never really hear about them, right? Like you hear about, Bezos and Zuckerberg, and then if kind of the on the left and the right in terms of people who are like trying to wield political power. You have like George Soros is on the left, and you have the Koch brothers on the right, and you have these like names that are like these wealthy people. Bill Gates, who is very involved in public policy. You just never really hear from the Waltons.
Maybe because it's not sexy, right? Like Musk and his fucking solar powered and his spaceship cars, and Amazon Bezos with his new way that he's going to take over everything.
Yeah.
I guess that's sexy, right?
I think that's definitely part of it, and maybe it's by design. Maybe they don't want to be in the public light so much, but like,
and they all live in Arkansas still, right? Maybe not, but
I mean,
that's where out of Arkansas.
Yeah, that's where the company was founded for sure. I mean, they got so much money they can live everywhere if they wanted to.
Oh yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe fucking TMZ needs to beef up their Arkansas.
their Arkansas beefs head down to Fayetteville.
Yeah, new branch there.
Yeah, but like the name like I know the name George Soros and I know the name the Koch brothers. I don't know how they made their money, but I know the names because they're out there, they're active, they donate to various causes that are kind of would benefit them, like most people would. But those like they're very, I would say they're more public facing than the Waltons are. So to see them kind of leading the charge for this new wave or this new solution of privatizing fresh water and waterways is like, like that's weird. Of all the things for that family to be publicly involved in, and this whole episode today is really stemming from an article written in the Wall Street Journal. I think it was like on October 10th, sometime last week. So I think it was October 10th. And so they've started this foundation, and over the last 10 years, and it's like a non-profit foundation, but they've spent over $200 million basically talking about the Colorado River. And that some of that money goes into ecological studies at universities, and it's they get this grant founded and that grant founded and this and that, and then it's all about they're kind of putting out, and then some of it's just straight up marketing, where they just put out these like the way to solve this crisis is through privatization. And I've been listening to this audiobook, not to brag, by this guy named Alan Watts, and he had a quote that stuck with me about it wasn't about this, but it could be applied to this, where he says the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So the Waltons, they might be like, hey, we got all this money, like we need to like fucking solve this crisis, let's privatize it. They might have like the best intentions in the world, but then it's like, okay, what happens then if you privatize it? And like nobody disputes this, the prices go up, right? Because you instead of just having this, what they have now is basically a pact that was signed by, it's been in use for over 100 years, and it's all the states that are impacted by this waterway, which is the Colorado River, which is Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, California, Arizona, and I think New Mexico. And they all signed this thing, and that like you had the ranchers involved, you had farmers involved, you probably didn't have native people involved because they just didn't really give a fuck about them that much back then. And but you had all these groups, and they kind of came together and they signed this law, because that was one of the things from the water wars with Egypt and Ethiopia, where they're just like, yeah, we have the Nile, and we're just going to dam the shit out of the part that's in our country, and you guys can fuck off somewhere. So this pact that was created 100 years ago was basically to like prevent that kind of a war by the states, like the individual states. Because if you're Colorado, and have you been to Colorado?
Yes.
Okay, so everyone talks about the Rockies, but most of the state is just like this flat, arid, like nothing going on. In theory, Colorado, if this was like how Ethiopia and Africa were doing it, they could just dam up the Colorado River and divert it and have like the most lush green farmland to the east of the Rockies that anybody could ever dream of, right? Because it's that right climate. Then they're like, well, then what you do is you just kill Southern California, you kill Arizona, New Mexico. 40 million people now depend on the Colorado River some way, shape, or form. It's drinking water. Like I said, it's used for electricity, power, like those hydroelectric dams, and for ranchers, like cattle ranchers, and for farmers. So a lot of like different interests, and they've had this kind of thing in place. And now the Waltons and others, but they're really leading the charge, are like, let's just privatize it. So then what happens? Who bids for the water? Who has the most money?
The Waltons.
Well, the Waltons, but also like they would then be in charge of selling it to other people. So if you're like some family rancher or some family farmer that's had use to this water for 100 years, your family's been out there forever, you own 160 acres, you just move cattle around it, you grow almonds, whatever, you might not have the capacity to get in a bidding war with Las Vegas, Nevada. Right, because Las Vegas, they get all their electricity, all their water, all the hotels, all those extravagant water features that you see around there. All that stuff is really supplied. All the electricity for that is supplied by the Colorado River. And you might be a small farmer growing fucking almonds or something like that, or as a small farmer, and your neighbors, you're surrounded by giant farms. Well, they might be able to afford that.
Hey, let's take another quick break here because we got to talk about Upstart. And listen, we're never going to have as much money as the Waltons.
I mean, I wish.
Yeah, I wish. And if you're listening, sadly, probably not either.
Probably not.
Unless
you're one of the Waltons listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless the Waltons are listening.
Yeah.
But if you're having some other issues, you're having trouble paying off credit card debt, and everyone knows that can be not great, and it could be unenjoyable, and it could feel like a mound that just piles up and up. Upstart's here for you. It's a fast and easy way to pay off your debt with a personal loan that's all done online. So whether it's paying off credit cards, consolidating high-interest debt, or funding personal expenses, over 500,000 people have used Upstart to get one fixed monthly payment with a clear payoff date. Over 1 million people. Sorry, not 500,000. Over 1 million. Even bigger number.
Ooh.
So the good thing about Upstart is rather than looking just at a credit score, they look at a bunch of other factors, which is important. They use your income, current employment, and credit history to find you a rate for a smarter loan. For a smarter rate for your loan. You can check your rate without impacting your credit score in minutes for loans between $1,000 to $50,000. And you can receive the funds as fast as one business day after accepting your loan. Find out how Upstart can help you lower your monthly payments today when you go to upstart.com/Eddie. That's upstart.com/Eddie, EDDIE. Don't forget to use that URL to let them know that we sent you. Loan amounts will be determined based on your credit, income, and certain other information provided in your loan application. Once again, upstart.com/Eddie. Go do it. Get rid of that debt in a smarter fashion. All right, let's hop back into it. Let's be clear here. The smallest almond farmer is using a lot of fucking water per your fun fact.
Definitely. Okay, so I do have that fact as well. So one little baby almond, right? Those little almonds are about the size of like your the top half of your thumb if your thumbnail if you're being generous, right? Like that's how big an almond is. It takes 3 gallons of water to make one almond.
That's fucking crazy.
Okay. How about this though? You ever had a pound of ground beef?
Of course.
Okay. Do you guess how many gallons it takes per pound of ground beef?
God, if it takes fucking 3 for an almond, I'm gonna say 33.
1,800.
Oh my God.
1,800 gallons per pound of grass-fed beef. Now, like that's
a shit ton.
That's a shit ton, and then there's also arguments like there's different side, like you're kind of cherry picking data,
Yeah.
But like you could make an argument that some of that water is returned to the soil, especially if they're like these free range cattle that just kind of move around, or even rotational grazing, that a lot of that water is passing through and getting returned. It's good for soil health. So it's not just like this suck necessarily, but that's something that's above my pay grade. But there are two sides to that story, and I'm sure there's one for the almonds as well. But that is a thing where it's like it takes 3 gallons of water to make one little almond. It's crazy.
It's wild.
It's crazy. And it just makes you think that we should just not be eating almonds. And 80% of all the world's almonds are grown in that basin in California that I was talking about earlier. So if they're using so much water to grow these almonds. And almonds, I feel like in the last 10 years have exploded.
Yeah.
Like there's almond everything now. Almond milk.
That kind of seems
flour.
like a problem. Like if one of the most popular nuts is produced in an area that has a scarce water supply.
And you could say the same thing about beef. Yeah. Like we're a country that eats, a lot of beef. And if the Waltons or the government or somebody says, actually, you know what? We're just, it's too much water. So we're going to start importing our beef. Then America doesn't produce any beef. We have to get it from Argentina. We have to get it from Brazil. We have to get it from China. We have to, that doesn't seem like a great solution to me either. So it's really, I should preface this. I don't know what the answer to this problem is. I'm not on the Walton side. I'm not on the other side. It's just like, this is something that's going on. And I remember watching this documentary about California water wars on Netflix like a few years ago, being like, holy fuck, like 3 gallons of water for one almond. Like that's crazy. And then you have these other communities, like these smaller communities again, where if it was completely privatized, they can't bid successfully. If you're a small community, there are already problems in the Southwest United States of these communities that have no running water because they can't, like the city itself can't afford it. So if it's privatized completely and then we get away from this pact that's been involved for 100 years, and then the Waltons are in charge or whoever is in charge of selling and treating it as a commodity, you're going to have a lot more communities that don't have access to water. The theory, the plus side of the argument is, well, if it is more expensive, kind of by design through this privatization, well, then people will treat it as such. Okay, Ed, like you're a guy, you love the Turkish bathhouses, you love to take a soak, run that hot water, leave the water running while you're brushing your teeth, all that kind of stuff. If you were watching all your money go down the drain, even if it's pennies at a time, you would make sure that you would be a little bit more conservative with water, which might be a net benefit for the planet. So that is kind of like people are like basically treating this water like it's, like they can just piss it away. And if we incentivize them to be more conservative with their use and just conserve that water in general, then that's a net benefit for the climate. That's kind of what people are arguing is like, that's how we restore the water levels to what they were. The other problem with this whole equation is that when they first came up with this pact, the year they wrote the pact, and this goes back to like 1907, was the wettest year in history. So they're looking at the Colorado rivers like up to the brim, right? And they're like, holy shit, we got all this water. And then the next year it's down to like normalized, but you're giving it away. You're siphoning off section for California ranchers, farmers, Colorado, all these different states based on all-time record high levels. But in reality, like those figures really should have been rewritten. And the funny thing is, like people knew it. People knew it in like the 1860s that there's just not enough water to support like massive populations out there. I want to show you this map and I'll send it to Harry to like maybe put in the graphic. This is before the United States, the Western United States was really like settled. Yeah. So it was all just territories. This is a map this is what this guy, his name was, I got his name written down here because he's an interesting guy. John Wesley Powell. He made this map, which is like, this thing makes no fucking sense. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, like probably like 14 different states out there. But that map is based on water flow. He's like, the only way to like have these states be self-sufficient is if we draw these borders, not for political reasons, but as like built around the resources of the water. So this way, like California would have enough water for their Southern California, which would be a different state than Northern California by this design. They would have enough water. New Mexico, Arizona get split up into like 4 or 5 different states. Colorado split up into like 6 different states. And it's like, that's a really weird, interesting way to look at it. And then you had that guy in the 1860s. And then you had another guy named Eugene LaRue, who was the #1 geologist in the world at that point. He went before Congress when this pact was getting agreed upon. And he's like, hey, like this is never going to work. You're using the wrong numbers, the wrong flow, the wrong everything. But at that time, they were just like, they're so far down the road. And it's like, you know, you scratch my back. Like the typical Washington backroom thing, like my constituents need the water for this. I can't go back and tell them they can't have it. I'll get thrown out of office. So they just signed it. Like it'll be someone else's problem. Now it's our problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's the United States problem. And now the Waltons are trying to step up to solve this problem by being like, give us all the water. Like we're going to buy all the water.
No, are they doing this from an investment point of view, or is this more of a humanitarian thing? Because that could be good then, right? If the Waltons are like, hey, we're rich, and like we don't want slapdick village, no offense to them, whoever's running it, maybe it's not ran the best and they think they could do a better job. They could put more resources behind it. They look at this as their mission to America, who has made them a lot of money.
Yep.
And, right? I don't know. I'm just looking at the other point of view.
For sure.
Possibly.
And I think there is probably an element of that. But they're also, you don't get that wealthy without making sound investments. I think they probably look at it as something that's going to be a commodity and something that they can sell. And it should be pointed out too, again, this is like a 2 sides of the same coin sort of thing. 2 of the people who are on that foundation that they started, they've spent $200 million like on think pieces and university studies and grants and things like that, which all the science kind of favors how the Waltons think, ironically enough. Like that's just their way of the world. Like that's how things get done. You want your grant better, your study better find what we want it to find. And then it's like, it's not the Waltons found this, it's University of wherever found this study. So 2 people that were on like running that organization now have been appointed to senior positions in the Biden administration. So if people are acting, and you have like private equity firms, it's not just the Waltons. People are kind of reacting, kind of reading the tea leaves, being like, hey, like there might be a chance that water is made instead of like a public utility, it's made like it's privatized. And then it is a commodity, and then you can just jack up the prices. And that's one of those things where it's like, I don't know what the answer is. I am pretty like, I think if you listen to this show enough, I'm kind of like a free market person, but it's like, how can you just like deny, be like, sorry, you don't have enough money for water, so you're fucking out. Yeah. Like water, like that's just like a basic human need that everybody has. Like it's not, you should be able to turn on your faucet and get water. And it's I don't know.
And especially now in today's time where everyone's so concerned about the rising levels, it's like, how are there still areas that don't have it?
Yeah. Well, I think, and it's a growing problem. Yeah. So it's like we're going backwards. So, you know, we think of not having running water. Like when you hear about a place that doesn't have running water, you must be like, what, you know, is it Sudan? Yeah, you know, like are these, you know, we got to do something to get these people like clean water. And then you have these donation drives. It's like, actually, no, it's like this little town in Southern California.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, oh, well, shit, that's a real problem. And then part of the reason like this pact is there's kind of like if you don't use it, you lose it kind of mentality. So it's like we're having a drought. Usually like when rations are scarce, they're divided equally and everybody takes a haircut. That's not how this works. And it'll be even more dramatic when it's privatized, because it's like, I don't care that some, you know, grapefruit or orange farmer downstate, I got to grow my almonds. So I'll just outbid them. And then so everybody who just can't afford the higher prices because the land are owned by these bigger farms, or they're owned by, you know, power companies or whatever that need that water, they'll always be able to win the rights to the bids, and then you'll see other farms and industries just kind of die off, which I think is probably not the best. So no. I don't know what the answer is. All I know is that the situation right now is kind of fucked, and but this is something like to keep your eye out on, because it doesn't seem like
When is this like? What made you want to talk about this today? Is
this was in that Wall
soon?
Street Journal like last week.
Okay, so this is like on the brink of making this happen.
We're trending more and more that way.
Wow.
So people on Wall Street, these different private equity firms, this Walton firm, they're kind of reading the tea leaves. Well, the Waltons took their 2 people from the Colorado River Foundation. I can't remember what the name of it is, and now they're in charge in the Biden administration of like asset managing for the Colorado River. So then they could go back and make a recommendation to Biden and be like, hey, like we got to just privatize it. And we have buyers willing to step in and buy the water rights to the river. And then they might just say, okay, so, and people around the market, and they're actively working for ways to create markets that you would buy and trade water futures as if it was barrels of oil, so it's like, oh, what's the price of water today? You don't fucking know, but you could just look, like in that context, what it means, like, oh, it was X amount per barrel for oil, right? Like we're going to get to the same point if this goes through that water in the United States would be run in a very similar fashion.
Yeah. Damn, we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah.
Fucking Walmart's going to own water.
All your Nestle's, all that just going to come right from the Walton family. Walmart branded water.
Be crazy.
That would be crazy.
Well, how the fuck do the Great Lakes fit into this?
That's a good question. I think, this is it's a bigger issue for the Western United States.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are all relying basically on one river system, meaning the Colorado River.
Yeah.
And so like we get our water from Chicago, gets their water from Lake Michigan. I don't know how many people know that, but I think it's going to be something that's different for every region. And it's something that impacts them more than the 40 million people that live out there, more than it impacts us. And that's one of those things is like, without the Colorado River, the Western United States just does not exist. Like if we fucked that up like 100 years ago during settlement or something like that, it doesn't exist. And you can kind of chart this through the population of Southern California, where like San Francisco was like booming after they had the gold rush of 1849. LA was not that way because they just didn't have water supplies and resources for that part of the country. And then these guys, this guy named Mulholland and this other guy, Fred Eaton, they kind of they found this, they built this aqueduct to supply LA with water. And you went from a population of LA in like 1900 of like 100,000. They get this deal done with Roosevelt's administration between 1902 and 1907. They build this aqueduct. And in 1930, the population was 1.5 million.
Gotcha.
So like you're seeing a boom, and it's all directly tied to being able to grow food there, being able to have running water there, being able to have the resources to supply a city and really a whole state based just on being able to secure enough water for that part of the country. Mm-hmm. And now it's like some of the highest priced real estate in the world is Southern California. 150 years ago, it was considered worthless because you just couldn't do anything out there because it was all basically desert.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it is.
Crazy. Well, all right. Thank you, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye out for this, everybody.
Yeah.
That's all I could say.
Yeah.
And also, someone told me once before that there's like a stock that trades
water.
A
water
but
ETF.
It's hard to find. They don't like admit it.
Huh.
Someone DM me that again. Might want to invest in some water. That guy from The Big Short's doing it.
Yeah. Well, there is Invesco Water Resources ETF. There's First Trust Water ETF. So they are out there. Water ETF list. I forgot
what the guy said. He's like, this is one they like don't like to say that it's water, but it's water.
But it's water?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Maybe he's lying to me.
We'll have to crack that code next week.
Very plausible.
Yep.
Well, all right. That's it for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next time.